Alright, ladies and gentlemen, what the fuck is going on? Just bought me a bottle of rum. That should be fun. Gonna be doing this old, I don't call it a spell, but it's a type of sympathetic magic, where you pick up dirt from a few places, and once a month you gotta spray rum on it, as payment, basically. So, but the spell in general is so that you never go to jail, never get sick and go to the hospital, you're never go hungry, and you never go broke. You gotta capture dirt from a few places. Another one I learned from Frederick Xavier, and I don't feel comfortable telling you guys, so I'm sorry about that. But it is as it is. Anybody wants to know personally, maybe send me a message personally, and I will elaborate. But I want to talk about thought forms today. In one of my last videos, I talked about thought forms, and I talked about how they would be spraying and killing and mowing down any other thought forms coming towards my house. And as that's true, in a manner of speaking, your thought form is definitely in the mental plane. It has to be on the astral plane. You got to get enough energy into this thought form. Give your thought form enough energy so that it works on the astral plane. And you have to have a representation down here of it. So when you create a thought form, it's a little different from other magic. So, for example, sorry, it's cold in my car. For example, whenever you are doing a sigil and you want to have $3,000 come to you, you make a sigil, you put so much energy into that, sigil that you create your reality on the astral plane with you having that. You feel it, you believe it. And when you burn away that sigil, you got rid of the representation here in this realm. Therefore, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the gods, all there is, goddess, she pours a vacuum and allows that thing to happen to you here on this plane, because it's already been created on the astral plane. Thought forms are not different, but they are. So when it comes to thought forms, your belief and faith in your thought form is what fuels it. You also give him a type of payment or a type of some way of getting energy, basically. So if your thought form is not feeding off of something, whether it's, you say, all the harmful energy and thoughts people send me, that's what my thought form fuels off of. This way they don't get to you. That's a good way of doing it. Fortunately, if someone's not thinking about you for a few days or whatever the case is, well then, but you can always create a YouTube channel and come out with controversial shit, and then, you shouldn't have to worry about that. But that being said, because like for my process of making a thought form, I don't create this. I know it's not like I create this being in a book saying this is my thought form, and then I burn that being, and then he is now in the astral, and then has to filter down here, although that could work. But you actually need to keep the book. And what I do is I have a consecrated book. So I have a consecrated book for many things. I consecrated one book for whatever I write into this book happens in my reality. That's one of my consecrated books. I have another consecrated book that I write within a consecrated circle while holding my gnosis while I'm at my temple, and that's where I create my thought forms. I do that for a 7-day period before I put the final energy that I channel by both the microcosmic orbit and the middle pillar into my thought form, and then bring him to life. But I guess what I want to say is simply that when it comes to thought forms, and servitors and shit like that, it's a little different because the physical representation is no longer here. And I was asking that question to Thunder Wizard the other day, and maybe it ticks me off a little bit, but I won't get into it because I find it very hard to ask a question without making it big. I'm not the type of person who can ask a point blank question. Like, I should have just asked, hey, when if your grandmother's passed away, is the consciousness you're talking to her, or is it what I said? And I believe it's what everybody who knew her holds her consciousness in their mind. Therefore, that's the consciousness you can call on, and it'll answer you and it'll know things about her, because everybody who believes her, it's kind of like if you ever watch the Book of Life, it's a kids movie, or the Book of the Dead, both kids movies, by the way, and similar ideas in there. If everybody you know dies, then you die in your little heaven, because you're only alive within their mind, and they're down having a party. And then if everybody dies, there's no one up in the land of the living to remember you. Well, then you go down to this other place where you just wait to be blown away, kind of thing. It's pretty sad. But when it comes to our consciousnesses, I think it's very similar to that. It's not exactly how they put forth, but it's something to that effect. So, but at the same sense, your soul renews, and that soul is still here in this world at this time, with all those memories within that soul, even though that person can't speak to it. So, for example, my dead grandmother that I want to speak to, I can talk to her anytime, and the consciousness that everybody holds of my grandmother, like the thoughts about my grandmother, all the experiences they had with her within their mind, is here alive and whatever. But the soul of my grandmother is also back reincarnated here as well, with all the actual memories that happened that were recorded through her subconscious. Now that goes along with your soul. For example, let's say I am a reincarnated version of Aleister Crowley, and anybody who wants to tap into Aleister Crowley is actually tapping into my soul. And I'm not saying that's true, I'm not saying that's the case, it's just an example, but let's just say that's the case. Well, if anytime anybody wants to tap into Aleister Crowley, they're actually having to go through my soul right now and get information. Now, there is the consciousness that everybody has within their mind, and there is all the knowledge that everybody has of Aleister Crowley in the first place. Alright, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? You know who it is. I don't know if I played the shit I've already had previously to this. I was talking about how the soul goes with the subconscious goes with the soul, and goes up to heaven or hell, or where the souls go with the all, whatever the case is. However, when it gets reincarnated, our soul is here on earth. So when you're channeling your spirits or your ancestors or whatever, this is why you're able to do it. So it's kind of more than just a thought form. It's more than just this consciousness within everybody's mind, like I was previously assuming that person, that entity is alive within everybody. So it's a whole new light on that, and I never really put that together until just now. So, which is pretty cool. So I gotta thank Thunder Wizard for that, to be honest, because if he hadn't shot down my idea that day when I was watching his show, and said, "Well, you want me to co-sign your," I forget how he put it, but co-sign my idea, basically, my belief, whatever it was. He was basically dissing me, not dissing me, but he was reacting to the way I asked the question, because I didn't really ask the question. There's nothing in there that I really asked, so I understood. Of course, at first I was a little butthurt and I was going to get mad, so that's why I just kind of chilled. I didn't continue to make this episode because I don't want to react to him reacting to me or anything like that. So I just let it be, and now I'm okay. That's all I want to talk about today. I want to talk about prophecy. I want to talk about Christianity and revelation, and I want to talk about even something that I've been saying about the Ethiopian calendar being 2012 and all that, and Ethiopia and Mesopotamia, and well, not Mesopotamia, but the Mayan calendar and shit like that. I want to talk about that because there's this Birch episode that I watched, this Doomsday one. I watched it many times, and I've heard what he said in it, but it didn't click until just now. So I want to play that for you. But first, I'm going to play some fear-based media right here on my fucking channel, on my fucking YouTube, on my fucking, well, this is going to be on my podcast as well. So on my fucking podcast, on my fucking YouTube channel. I'm going to play that for you here right now. Now, I don't know if they're about 15 to 20 minutes each. This guy's Woodward TV. Well, when I was watching fear-based media, he is probably one of the best guys for putting together fear-based media and talking about the Book of Enoch and everything from fucking spirits, Nephilim, media, even though I think he is fear-based media. He talks about the media deception, even coronavirus now, all these different things. He does a lot of good, research, and he does a lot of good, even though it's not channeling that's going to benefit anybody. He does a lot of interpretation with his Christian programming. And so I don't want you to take it on. But I do want you to hear what he has to say and hear how fear-based it is. And then I'm going to knock his shit out of the park and tell you there's nothing to worry about. So I'm going to get you scared, and then I'm going to tell you there's nothing to worry about. So if this is something that interests you, keep watching. If it's not, don't worry about it. But I'm going to explain to you why it's not important. And, I'll get magically. And you know how I do. I'm going to talk about something, and it may not be necessarily procedure magic, but I'm going to get into that. I'm going to somehow be able to relate something to that. And, it's just going to come out of me, and I can't even help it most of the time. So, and I'll tell you, maybe I'll even get into, the recent candles I've done. The money success I told everybody about, $700, the $500 and the $200. That wasn't it. She had did some loans to borrow money recently, and the amount of, once again, one was $300, one was $600, and we also got both of those accepted. So in terms of credit and loans, 2 credit cards we haven't used yet, haven't touched. The loans we both used. The reason we got it is because our mortgage had to go through, and our mortgage account was short $300. I don't know what happened. I know it generally happens like this pretty often for us. We overspend, or not so much overspending. This is what we used to happen. We used to always overspend, but more recently it's bills she forgets that are coming out. They come out when she has just the exact amount for for our mortgage in the account. So $300 was taken out the night before, and we had until Saturday at 11 o'clock to get that money in there. And lo and behold, she got another. So we had our $700 for our cards that we were able to use right away. But we didn't want to use our cards. And turns out she got those 2 loans, so we were able to use those loans. Lower interest rate, we didn't have to use the cards. So, and it just goes to show that, anything's possible. Like a month ago when we were trying to go on our trip, we couldn't get a credit card, we couldn't get a fucking loan, we couldn't get fucking nothing. And now I'm getting everything. It's like the only difference was the fucking magic I did, the fucking candle I did. So you could be the judge of that. But I know deep down inside that this shit works, and because of my ultimate faith and my years of putting together a connection between my subconscious and unconscious, my subconscious and my conscious mind, developing that gnosis, that I still do my ritual, but I make the candle before I even do the ritual, and I light the fucking candle, and then I go away, and then when I have time at night, I'll either stand in front of it, do it in the flesh, get naked. I always get naked in ritual, or I'll do it in the shower sometimes to save time. This way I'm already naked, so it's not weird. Someone walks in my room, sees me naked in front of a candle, drawing pentagrams in the air. They're like, what the fuck? So I'm already in the shower. Candles are in the other room. Sometimes I bring my portable altar with me. What I mean by that is I have a pillar, a cement pillar. It was made like that, maybe for gardening, maybe for whatever. It goes about up to my waist, and on top of there I have a pentacle, pentacle, basically. A 6-rayed star. Nope. It's pentagram. I showed you guys that, made out of wood. Anyways, it's on top of my thing, and then I have the candles. Most of the time, or as of right now, I have normally going a Saturn black candle, a red Mars candle, a blue moon candle, and in the middle it'll vary, but anyway, from black, blue, or just plain old white in the middle for Pluto, which is that transformation sigil that I actually do the candles for within, and on those candles I have that sigil or whatever. But point is, I'll be in the shower doing my fucking ritual way after I made the fucking candle, and most of the time the shit ends up happening before. Once again, I can't tell you if it's the candle I did that day or previous candles I did, but all I know is that I've been doing candle magic consistently for the last I'd say almost 3 years now, but I know it's at least 2. And it manifests every fucking time. It always manifests. Now,
as we need money, I do a candle for money. And I don't necessarily know if that's that candle that day I make, but like I've done things before where I've gotten the same money the same day. Like I have videos on here explaining how I did a candle to Jupiter, and it seemed like it was utterly impossible for me to get that money. Like no way in hell. Then boom. And with the same circumstance, same situation with my wife, her getting, forget what it was, but it was money in the account. Mine got released to me, and then hers was like 4 weeks fucking later, you know? So you can be the judge on how that works. But anyway, so I'm going to play fear-based media here for you today. I think it's going to be mostly about Enoch, the end of the world, and shit like that. And then I'm going to play something by BULLSH explaining what the prophecies and how the prophecies have already came true, and then I'm going to elaborate on how Christianity, the church, and all these motherfuckers on the internet are trying to make you believe that this stuff is still relevant today to scare you into believing this shit could happen for God knows what reason. Because if they really knew that the mind controlled things, they might stop doing this shit, because the more people that think this is going to happen, the more likely it is to happen. Simple as that. Can't make it any simpler. The more symbolism you get into your mind that the end of the world is coming, well, the more likely it is to come. And it could be the reason why our world is in such a fucking shitty state. You know what I mean? There's more people watching fear-based media than ever. There's more people on the internet trying to use law of attraction shit to bring stuff to them. But let's say these people are trying to fine-tune their mind to do what they want, yet all their thoughts are dwelling on, oh shit, what ifs. And then the whole time they're just taking in these moving pictures, motion pictures, movies, right? That are on YouTube or whatever it is, just people showing you things and symbolism and then speaking these words. It's all going right into your subconscious mind. And then, boom, we got this plague happening on the earth called COVID-19. Whether it's real or not, people are dying from it. And, you know, I would even debate that there's people that die every year of similar things, and we're just putting this under the microscope. That's totally going to be my opinion, but it doesn't matter. People are dying from COVID-19, however you look at it or not. And it could be the doctors just saying people are fucking dying of COVID-19. I've watched and seen and viewed the court cases about doctors and different health organizations being brought to court and then settling under the table so it doesn't go to the media. I've seen all that info. I know that's true. I know that's happening. But nonetheless, this is going on, and it's for a reason. And so people's minds are more powerful than people know and believe and think. And the more these people, whether they're Christian, whether they're Satanists, maybe they are people wanting to just kill the world. Well, I'm getting tired of having to fight against that. I'm getting tired of having to use my fucking power to fight against this. You know, by creating my own reality, I'm on the front. I'm opposing this reality that people are trying to create, where the Nephilim are coming back, or we're going to be put into FEMA camps, or whatever the case is. Just by creating my own reality. So everybody who is actively creating their own reality are helping my cause, our cause, the cause of not annihilating the world. Okay? On top of that, I actually go above and beyond, and I try to banish those things away. I will literally use, I shouldn't say exactly how I do it, but anybody who's trying to hurt mankind, I will send out energy, returned to sender energy to those people, especially when it comes to me and my family. So I will take responsibility for my family members, and I'll extend that to like my mother, my sister, and everybody like that. And I will say, anybody trying to sway them or trying to harm them, I fucking send that energy back to fucking sender. I don't even send Pluto, the destroyer, against them. Anybody trying to destroy humanity, I send their energy back to them to destroy them. I will do that. And I believe that most people should do that instead of focusing on this bullshit. This way, if there is someone trying to harm mankind, then they get harmed in the process, and it's a karma-free action. But if there is nobody trying to do that, well, once again, then there's no energy being sent out. So once again, there's nothing to worry about. There's no action. So whether someone's trying to harm us, well, then they get harmed back by their own energy attacking them, and it protects me and my family. Or if there is nobody doing that, if it's just all bullshit to try to get humanity to wake up, which is also a very good possibility, well then I didn't actually harm anybody by sending Pluto or anybody against them. So win-win, right? And I won't know the difference, and I won't get any karma from it, because if someone is sending that energy to me and all my family members, and all I'm doing is stopping it and redirecting it back at them, well then it's just their own energy going back to source, which eventually would happen. But instead of it going through them, passing through them, and then returning back to them once it's done with them, I'm stopping it, putting up a barrier, using archangels and different methods, and then the transformation sigil and all these other means to stop it, put it at bay, and send it back. And sometimes I'll even add thought forms to that if I think it's in need. So there you go. This is how I am a light worker trying to save the world. And maybe it's not my place to do that, but at the same sense, I don't want anybody harming my fucking family. If my family do this shit on their own, well, I'm going to do it. So this is another way I try to help. And once again, I made a video not that long ago saying I'm kind of sick of everybody watching this shit and that shit getting in their subconscious mind and creating these possibilities, and me having to do this shit and send this back to sender for all my family members, and sometimes for just humankind in general. So anyways, I'm going to play fear-based media. Protect yourself while you're watching it so it doesn't happen to you, so this shit doesn't get into your mind. But, sorry, there's too many girls walking out here. It's killing me. But, yeah, so anytime you start thinking that any of the shit I'm watching, if you start thinking that, oh, fuck, that makes sense. Maybe that is happening. I banish that thought, and I accept that no one is trying to harm the human race. Simple thing like that is changing the opportunity, the fact, the possibility of people actually making these things happen to humanity. Simple thing like that is you banishing that from your subconscious mind. And every time you start thinking, oh fuck, you got a point there, maybe this is true, whether it's true or not, if you banish it from your reality, it cannot happen in your reality. Simple as that. The first line of defense for you and everybody else in this world in general is to banish the thoughts that you don't want to play out, whether or not you think they're legit or not. If you banish them before you, because if you just watch it and say, holy fuck, that's real, that's a version of accepting it. Can't do that. So the first line of defense is banishing it. As soon as you see it, like, no, I banished that. No, I don't. I deny that that's a possibility. And make sure you don't use, I do not accept that. Don't use that shit. I deny, I banish, I reject. Those are the three best ways to do this. Or, I know that the world is free from this, and I accept that this is our reality. That's how you state these things properly, so that you don't accept something by accident. Because if you say, I do not accept this, it ends up being, I do accept this. Because it doesn't, your mind, the magical mind, the subconscious mind, the unconscious doesn't understand the do nots. Once also something else I think is important just to restate that I made many videos about is positive energy and negative energy versus negativity and positivity. If you want to send someone positivity, you need to send them negative energy. And that's like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? In the world of electronics and physics and electricity, the negative ions are the healthy ones. Positive ions give you cancer. It's funny, I just said a bunch of hot girls were walking out, there's like 4 of them that walked by. It was fucking unbelievable. But anyways, positive energy, positive ions are the bad ones. I've said this many times, red and black, positive and negative. All right. Sorry about that. Ready, my daughter ready for dance. Trying to put in here. Fucking good shit. Red and black, positive, negative. The black grounds. This is why when your son or daughter is being too negative, not necessarily negative, but has too much negativity and is hitting their other siblings or talking back to you, well, that negativity, you're going to ground that negative energy. So you go take that kid and say, you're grounded. And it brings them back to neutral. They're not positive, they're not negative, and then they can start becoming positively charged, or once again, negatively charged. But that's a bad example because that's saying negative and positive once again, but positive electricity, positive ions, positive energy. You send someone positive energy, you could be sending them cancer, depression, bad shit. So you know, make sure you say positivity, or you say good energy, or happy energy, or free from harm energy. And because negative ions are what happen when you put your feet on the ground, you plant your feet, and you do that whole earthing thing, that's negative ions. That's the negative ions from the earth either balancing you out or it's grounding you or whatever the case is. It's all electricity. Everything is electricity. Everything is energy, right? The water from a waterfall, negative ions, electricity. The water where the waves come and hit the sand, it's negative ions. All this, you can buy something called a negative ion generator, and it's healthy for your house. It's negative ions in the air that balance out all the positive ions that keep bombarding you from your TV screens, your cell phone screens, your computer monitors. That's positive ions. So if you send someone positive energy, that's wrong. Stop saying that shit. Say positivity or say good ass energy. Okay? And I make the mistake from time to time too. I say positive energy instead of positivity. I heard Ralph Smart say it today by accident. He knows the difference. He just didn't mean to do it. People make that mistake all the time because you think positive is good and negative is bad. But when it comes to electricity and ions and energy and what the human body needs, negative ions right now is what we need because we are bombarded with positive ions. And positive ions are the bad ones. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say before I get to this fear-based media. And once again, it's a good example of how things are swapped. Positivity being good, but if you send someone positive ions or positive electricity, positive energy, you're doing something bad. And this is why you should be doing healing magic for a while. Another video I played from Birch a long time ago was exactly explaining this. So anyways, I gotta go drive my daughter to dance. So here comes the fear-based shit. And I'll be back on after to play the Birch thing to explain to you how the Mayan calendars, doomsday prediction, and the Christian Revelation doomsday prediction have both already happened and how there's nothing to worry about. So stop putting your fucking mind on this shit. All right, peace out. All right, real quick before I play it, I said the energies are swapped, or I said that's how this positive and positive ions versus positivity are both opposites, but of the same thing. It's not necessarily that they're opposites. It's not necessarily that someone did this on purpose. And who knows, maybe. But the collective consciousness understands our words. Okay, so the majority of our words, positivity and negativity, are, believe it or not, and look it up if you don't believe me, but they're relatively new terms. And we were able, when you have a new term that's accepted by the collective, all of us, then we ascribe, we prescribe, we add our own definition to that word. But just because we decided positivity was the good energy and negativity was the bad energy doesn't change that in the realm of anybody who's an electrician, anybody who's a physicist, anyone who's dealing with electricity or energy, period, even the human bioelectricity, okay? Anybody dealing with these things have these definitions and already know that negative ions and positive ions, what they are, and they already have definitions prescribed to them. So just because your intention or you believe that positivity and positive energy is the same thing doesn't mean shit. Your subconscious mind is connected to the unconscious, which is the collective unconscious, which is, oh, excuse me, that's disgusting, all of the words that we all know. It doesn't matter language barriers and none of that. Just we have these definitions for these words. And so the reason why the do nots and all that shit doesn't work as well on top of with this, it kind of is in the same classification. Oh, I don't like that. You know, sarcasm is relatively new. It wasn't something you heard much of in the 1950s. As far as I can tell, from my research, it's like not even hippie age, but it can't even really track it until like the 70s where sarcasm became a popular thing. But it wasn't in the collective consciousness, I don't think, yet either. In all honesty, anyways, not even getting into that. But point is, that's why these things don't understand. Your unconscious mind doesn't understand these do nots, these don'ts, even no. When I said earlier, no, I don't accept that. Turns out to, no, or it doesn't even say, it's just like, I accept that is really how that is. So even I fucked up with it when I was trying to explain this. So see how fast it happens. But I know when I make my spells, I know when I do my spell work that I don't do that. I might slip up here talking to you using the language you understand, but trust me, when I do my spell work, I don't use none of those shits. Everything I say is free from, or I reject, banish, or deny, always. And when it comes to sending people energy, I either am very clear with the type of energy I want, so meaning I use planetary energies to be very clear, or if I need to be very vague, I will literally say the type of healing energy that is needed for this person's physical body. It was how vague but direct I will be. This way there's no fucking around, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to clarify that the reason is not necessarily that these were swapped just to fucking confuse people, and who knows, maybe. But positive electricity, positive energy, positive ions, okay, zap you. The red cord zaps you. The negative grounds. Like I've explained before, the negative is always going around trying to find its way down to the center, to the neutron. Whereas the positive is already with the neutron. And as soon as you go to touch it to take it away from there, it zaps you. It's like, leave me the fuck alone. You know what I mean? So, anyways, that's just nor here nor there. Just a funny little thing that I think of sometimes. And my mind's always thinking of weird little things like that. But I just wanted to say that real quick because people might be like, whoa, you didn't really say much why. And if I remember, I'll put the link for Birch's video. Precise speech leads to precise thought, or precise something to that effect, is where I got this information, and then I looked it up, and it's true. I looked up all I could about electricity. I did like basic level entry electricity studies to become an electrician. And I didn't do it because I want to become an electrician, although I think it would be a cool job. But I did it because I wanted to understand electricity. Because I believe if you understand electricity, you're going to understand your own body's electricity, because we are electric. We do run on energy, whether it's the metaphysical energy we're talking about or the literal electricity that your cells need to perform their daily tasks. And how do you make that electricity? Well, salt and water is electricity in a cup. So when you put pink Himalayan sea salt in water and you actually drink that shit, you're putting electricity in your body. It's like plugging your ass in. So I mean, believe me, don't believe me about that. I don't care. Do your own research. You'll find out. You figure it out pretty fucking fast that you need that high alkaline diet. High alkaline, that's why there's a reason why alkaline batteries, you know. But anyways, that's something you need to figure out for yourself, because you can listen to me all day and be like, that makes sense. But until you see it for yourself and decide to implement it in your life, you're not going to do anything, you know. And hopefully you don't understand those do-nots. And if you don't believe me about the do-nots and shit, well, if you know anybody with a baby, you have a baby, just go up to them and say, don't do that, don't touch, and see what the hell happens. Even with your children that are older, say, hey, you better not do that, and see how long it takes them before they do that. The first thing they're going to say if they don't do it, it's going to be, hi. It's going to excite that curiosity. It's going to drive them crazy. And as if they don't just say, fuck you. You know what I mean? But anyways, on to the fear-based media. Here we go. Book of Enoch. There's 2 parts to this bitch. Probably about 40 minutes long. It's up to you. You don't have to watch it. If you think you're not ready to watch fear-based media and you think you can't accept it, it's about the Book of Enoch. And I guess I'll say this now. I want to state that I agree with a lot of what this guy says. I agree that the Book of Enoch should have been in the Bible. I agree that the Book of Enoch it should be part of the Bible, like I just said. I believe that the flood story happened. I believe a lot of that. I'm not saying that shit isn't accurate, okay? At all. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm trying to say is, like the flood story that has already happened in the Bible, so has Revelation and a lot of these other predictions, and that we shouldn't be using the Bible to predict our day-to-day is what I'm trying to say. At the very least, because people seem to not want to give up this fucking book. So at the very least, I want people to stop thinking that they can predict our future with a Bible that's fucking old by people that are dead, long gone. Okay? Good? Alright, here we go.
And after this, I saw another dream, and I will show it all to you, my son. And Enoch raised his voice and said to his son Methuselah, to you I speak, my son. Hear my words, and incline your ear to the dream vision of your father. You know, many people have stated that the Book of Enoch is not a canonical work of the Bible. In other words, it was not inspired by God. Inspired meaning that the Bible is not really the Word of God, but the inspired Word of God. Do you understand? And in Ethiopia, they absolutely consider it to be canon. So which is it? The truth is, we don't really know, because it cannot be proven. That is the whole purpose of faith. Knowledge is different. I want to go through one of the chapters in the book of Enoch to show the similarities of what is written in the Bible and how the book of Enoch is telling the same stories. This chapter is called The Prophecy of Animals. And if you listen closely, I will show just how relevant this book is to what we already know. It begins with the story of Noah, the white bull.
Right now, you're tapping, swiping, and sending money more than ever. We can help with unlimited transactions and free Interac e-transfer transactions.
Do you all understand that the book of Enoch was written for the people of this time period? That is why we understand the book of Enoch better than they understood it a long time ago. So it was lost, and now it is found again. Before I took your mother, Edna, I saw a vision on my bed, and behold, a bull came out of the earth, and that bull was white. And after it, a heifer came out, and with the heifer came 2 bullocks, and one of them was black, and the other red. And that black bullock struck the red one, and pursued it over the earth. And from then on I could not see that red bullock. But that black bullock grew, and the heifer went with it. And I saw that many bulls came out from it, which were like it, and followed behind it. And that cow, that first one, came from the presence of that first bull, seeking that red bullock, but did not find it. And then it moaned bitterly and continued to seek it. And I looked until that first bull came to it and calmed it. And from that time it did not cry out. And after this, she bore another white bull. And after this, she bore many black bulls and cows. And I saw in my sleep that white bull, how it likewise grew and became a large white bull. And from it came many white bulls, and they were like it. And they began to beget many white bulls that were like them, one following another. And again, I looked with my eyes as I was sleeping, and I saw heaven above, and behold, a star fell from heaven, and it arose and ate and pastured amongst those bulls. Now, this section I just read gave me chills, because it rewrites history, doesn't it? We assumed all this time that the first man and woman were probably dark-skinned people, given that they were created from the earth, which is dark. But it clearly reads that the first bull, or man, that came out of the earth was white. I know I just made a whole lot of you start thinking, right? But let's just read through and see what happens, okay? Let's consider what is written in the Bible as we do this as well. You know, let me tell you all something before I go further. Something that I want you all to keep in mind that I have mentioned before. The history that we were told about is only a fraction of the true history of the world. We dig up the structures and artifacts thinking, this is what the old world was like. No. Those things, those ruins, the pyramids especially, are just the leftovers, the foundations, not the entire structure. We look at the Great Pyramid of Giza and think that is what it was back then. And that pyramid is just the foundation of the true structure. All the metals, the polymers, that just eroded and disintegrated. Some of it was removed, and all you have left is some stone structure. But there was another structure that sat on top of it. Metal, industrial, cranes, the works, machines. They dig underneath the pyramids and they find things that we take for granted today. They find drills, timepieces, gigantic weapons, as well as the remains of the giants that wielded those weapons. They hide all that stuff from us and lock it up in a secret location. Just something for you guys to think about and consider while I go through this chapter. So there was first the white bull, Adam. Then a heifer came out, Eve. And then along with her, 2 bullocks, one black, one red, Cain and Abel. Are you with me so far? Then something happens, right? A star or angel fell from heaven to live amongst those bulls or men and women. Okay? So next. And after this, I saw the large and the black bulls, and behold, all of them changed their pens, and their pastures, and their heifers. And they began to moan, one after another. And again, I saw in the vision and looked up at heaven, and behold, I saw many stars, how they came down, and were thrown down from heaven to that first star, and fell amongst those heifers and bulls. They were with them, pasturing amongst them. And I looked at them and saw, and behold, all of them let out their private parts, like horses, and began to mount the cows of the bulls. And they all became pregnant, and bore elephants, camels, and asses. Of course, this part describes the 200 watchers, and their descent to earth, and how they took women to impregnate them. And they bore elephants, camels, and asses, which would be the giants or Nephilim. There are several names for them, actually. I do like how animals are used to represent men, and how the animals born of the stars and bulls are completely different animals.
If you actually go into any bookstore in Israel and ask for the New Testament in Hebrew, they're gonna look at you as if you fell down.
And all the bulls were afraid of them, and were terrified in front of them. And they began to bite with their teeth, and to devour, and to gore with their horns. And so they began to devour those bulls, and behold, all the sons of the earth began to tremble, and shake before them, and to flee. And again I saw them, how they began to gore one another, and to devour one another, and the earth began to cry out. And I raised my eyes again to heaven, and saw in the vision, and behold, there came from heaven beings that were like white men. And again I saw them, how they began to gore one another, and to devour one another, and the earth began to cry out. And I raised my eyes again to heaven, and saw in the vision, and behold, there came from heaven beings that were like white men, and 4 came from that place, and 3 others with them. And those 3 who came out last took hold of me by my hand, and raised me from the generations of the earth, and lifted me up into a high place, and showed me a tower high above the earth, and all the hills were lower. And one said to me, Remain here until you have seen everything which is coming upon these elephants and camels and asses, and upon the stars, and upon all the bulls. And I saw one of those four who had come out first, how he took hold of that first star, which had fallen from heaven, and bound it by its hands and feet, and threw it into an abyss. And that abyss was narrow, and deep, and horrible, and dark. And one of them drew his sword, and gave it to those elephants, camels, and asses, and they began to strike one another, and the whole earth shook because of them. You can see here that the giants begin to turn against man, and they begin to eat them, because according to the book of Enoch, they ran out of food. After that, men began to fear them even more, and then these giants began to attack each other in what became a very long and extended war between them, where they would start to finish each other off. I mean, these giants, folks, were abominations. They were like animals. Their morals, everything was screwed up. What you have to remember is that all these angels, even the ones that fell, they still are under the rulership of God. So they can still be commanded and used for God's purpose. So it really isn't clear who these 4 and 3 angels that came down as white men. It could be the 4 bound at the Euphrates, plus Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Does that make sense? I mean, the numbers fit, right? Now, one of them, however, takes Enoch to a high place to show him the fate of those who were upon the earth. And Enoch explains that the one who took him to this place is the same being who took that first star and bound him and threw him into an abyss. Not the abyss, but a abyss. Which means, and you will see later, that there are several abysses. Also, one of these angels had purposely caused these giants to go to war against each other, which was part of the punishment of these angels, because they would have to stand by and watch their children die. And as I looked in the vision, behold, one of these 4 who had come out cast a line from heaven and gathered and took all the large stars, those whose private parts were like the private parts of horses, and bound them all by their hands and their feet, and threw them into a chasm of the earth. And one of these 4 went to a white bull, and taught him a mystery, trembling as he was. He was born a bull, but became a man, and built for himself a large vessel, and dwelt on it. And 3 bulls went with him in that vessel, and they were covered over. And again I raised my eyes to heaven, and saw a high roof with 7 water channels on it, and those channels discharged much water into an enclosure. And I looked again, and behold, springs opened on the floor of that large enclosure, and water began to bubble up and to rise above the floor. And I looked at the enclosure until its whole floor was covered by water. And water, darkness, and mist increased on it. And I looked at the height of that water, and that water had risen above that enclosure and was pouring out over that enclosure. And it remained on the earth. And all the bulls of that enclosure were gathered together, until I saw how they sank, and were swallowed up and destroyed in that water. And that vessel floated on the water, but all the bulls, elephants, camels, and asses sank to the bottom, together with all the animals, so that I could not see them. And they were unable to get out, but were destroyed and sank into the depths. And again, I looked at that vision until those water channels were removed from that high roof, and the chasms of the earth were made level, and other abysses were opened. And the water began to run down into them, until the earth became visible, and that vessel settled on the earth, and the darkness departed, and light appeared. So we have all the fallen angels that were hung like horses, according to Enoch. I don't know why he gave us those details, but they were all bound and placed in the mounds of the earth. Now one of the four angels went to a white bull or man and showed him a mystery. Actually, he showed him what would become of the earth. This, of course, is Noah, who is described as a white male, or maybe this is albinism, but I doubt it. I just think that was his complexion. We probably shouldn't try and understand genetics going back that far, especially when a great deluge resets everything. It describes how Noah built a vessel and went into that vessel with 3 others, and they were covered over, meaning the vessel was sealed. Then Enoch describes how all the animals that were left outside the vessel were covered by the water, and they were destroyed, unable to get out. He says other abysses began to open up, and the water drained into those abysses until the earth appeared, and the light of the sun had shined through. This is quite fascinating. Even though we have heard this story before, it does give a few more details to add to the story. And that is what the book of Enoch does. It kind of fills in the blanks and answers some of the questions we may have had about the story of Noah and the great flood. I want you guys to stay tuned for part 2 of this presentation. If you are new to the channel and enjoyed this presentation, if you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button down below to stay tuned in. And hit the notification bell and turn And that white bull, who became a man, went out from that vessel, and the 3 bulls with him. And one of the 3 bulls was white, like that bull, and one of them was red as blood, and one was black, and that white bull passed away from them. So let me explain this, because since part 1 of this presentation, I've had several people try to correct me about the meaning of the color of the bulls described in the book of Enoch. I've had people try and school me on melanin, race, and history, and I can't say that I am surprised. In fact, I saw it coming. If it's not the flat earthers, it's these folks. I know, because this is the internet, and you think you have freedom of speech. You don't know me personally, and I don't know you personally. You think, what do I have to lose? But I'm telling you, you haven't thought it through. You haven't thought about that delete button. You haven't thought about that block button. Try and school. I've had several people try to correct me about the meaning of the color of the bulls described in the book of Enoch. I've had people try and school me on melanin, race, and history, and I can't say that I am surprised. In fact, I saw it coming. If it's not the flat earthers, it's these folks. I know, because this is the internet, and you think you have freedom of speech. You don't know me personally, and I don't know you personally. You think, what do I have to lose? But I'm telling you, you haven't thought it through. You haven't thought about that delete button. You haven't thought about that block button. Bye. I don't care who you are. If someone came into your home and they don't live there or pay rent, but they started talking trash to you, how many of you would kick that person out of your home? So, if any of you would like to post a comment on one of my videos and would like to continue to post comments, I don't care if you disagree or not, but if you say something that is just plain stupid, I caution you to just be careful. I have absolutely no problem cleansing toxins. Now with that said, let me explain the color of the bulls. In the time of Enoch, there are no descriptive terms like white and black to describe people, because people are not really those colors. That is something we adopted in the modern age. But they can use white, red, and black to describe an animal, because animals can literally come in these colors. Go online and take a look. There are red, white, and black bulls. Enoch was seeing bulls in his dream that had those colors because bulls have those colors in real life. People do not come in these colors. Only different shades of really one color. Even if a person lacks pigmentation, they are not going to be literally white. Now I hope that I have cleared that up for a few of you who may not quite understand. By the way, I didn't write the book of Enoch, which is why I'm showing you all the text on the screen. So if you have a discrepancy, please make sure that what you present to me is solid. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's get down to business, shall we?
Wireless is about Andy Braddock, who is on his way to a New Year's party where he hopes
And they begin to beget wild animals and birds, so that there arose from them every kind of species: lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, badgers, pigs, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. But amongst them was born a white bull. And they began to bite one another, but that white bull, which was born amongst them, begat a wild ass, and a white bull with it. And the wild asses increased. But that bull, which was born from it, begat a black wild boar, and a white sheep. And that wild boar begat many boars, and that sheep begat 12 sheep. And when those 12 sheep had grown, they handed one of their number over to the asses, and those in turn handed that sheep over to the wolves. And that sheep grew up amongst the wolves. And the Lord brought the 11 sheep to dwell with it, and to pasture with it amongst the wolves. And they increased, and became many flocks of sheep. And the wolves began to make them afraid, and they oppressed them until they made away with their young. And then they threw their young into a river with much water. But those sheep began to cry out because of their young, and to complain to their Lord. Now, how many of you know what is being described here? Think about who might the wolves and sheep be. Think about what group of people back then were oppressed, and who oppressed them. There are clues in these verses, such as the 12 sheep, which represent the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And the Egyptians are the wolves. I know all these different animals makes it a bit confusing because you are trying to figure out which animal is which. But it is made a bit clearer in the later verses. But a sheep, which had been saved from the wolves, fled and escaped to the wild asses. And I saw the sheep moaning and crying out, and petitioning the Lord with all their power, until that Lord of the sheep came down at the call of the sheep, from a high room, and came to them, and looked at them. And he called that sheep, which had fled from the wolves, and spoke to it about the wolves, that it should warn them that they should not touch the sheep. And the sheep went to the wolves, in accordance with the word of the Lord. And another sheep met that sheep and went with it. And the two of them together entered the assembly of those wolves, spoke to them, and warned them that from then on they should not touch those sheep. And after this I saw the wolves, how they acted even more harshly towards the sheep, with all their power, and the sheep called out. Before I go any further, I would like to point out that this chapter in the book of Enoch is quite lengthy, so I will not be reading through the entire chapter. After we get into this a bit, I will be summarizing what was written, and I will provide you with a link to this version of the translation in the description box, in case you want to see what I am referencing here. So as you can see, the sheep, which had fled from the wolves, who was called by the Lord of sheep, is Moses. And he was sent to warn the Egyptians not to touch the sheep. The other sheep that went with him was his brother Aaron. Aaron actually became the spokesman for Moses when he went to see the Pharaoh. However, this caused the Egyptians to react in a way that would increase the stress of the Israelites. God told Moses that he would in fact cause the Pharaoh to resist, therefore making the 10 plagues inevitable. Next, Enoch describes how the sheep left the wolves, and the wolves chased after them with all their forces. The wolves caught up to the sheep by a stretch of water that was divided, as the water stood on one side and on the other. And the Lord of the sheep stood between the wolves and the sheep. And when the wolves saw the Lord of the sheep, they turned and ran. But the water flowed together again and covered the wolves. Once the sheep came out of the water, they went into the desert, where there was no water or grass. But the Lord of the sheep provided them with water and grass. Moses went to the summit of a high rock, and the Lord of the sheep stood before the sheep, and they trembled, as his appearance was terrible and majestic. And you know, this is one of the things described in the Bible. God is so powerful, he actually had to whisper to Moses because his voice was like a thunderstorm, he described.
Et à ce moment-là, je n'étais pas capable de dire encore il y a un problème de dépression peut-être ou quelque chose comme ça. C'était vraiment d'un point de vue santé.
And that sheep which led them again went up to the summit of that rock, and the sheep began to be blinded and go astray from the path which had been shown to them. But that sheep did not know. And the Lord of the sheep was extremely angry with them. And that sheep knew, and went down from the summit of the rock, and came to the sheep, and found the majority of them with their eyes blinded, and going astray from his path. And when they saw it, they were afraid and trembled before it, and wished that they could return to their enclosure. And that sheep took some other sheep with it, and went to those sheep that had gone astray, and then began to kill them. And the sheep were afraid of it. And that sheep brought back those sheep that had gone astray, and they returned to their enclosures. And I looked there at the vision, until that sheep became a man, and built a house for the Lord of the sheep, and made all the sheep stand in that house. If you know the Bible, this of course is the story of the golden calf and the tabernacle. See, as you continue to read through this chapter, what happens is you start to make the connections to find out who these animals represent. And then the animals suddenly become more and more human-like. And understand that to Enoch, these events occur far in the future. So it is very likely Enoch didn't even understand who these animals were himself, and therefore just continued to describe them as such. Now what happens next is quite interesting because there are 3 main events here. The first event was the time around the Great Flood with Noah. The second event was around the time of Moses and the plagues of Egypt. And then it seems that Enoch jumps all the way to the event that is described in Revelation. This actually starts to get confusing again because these last verses describe a whole lot of destruction and death. And Enoch describes the ram. Now the ram is actually often associated with Jesus. There is also a second ram described here as well, but you'll have to read through the verses to find out more about that because I don't really want to spoil anything for you. Enoch even describes the 7 angels and the sealed book. If you read this chapter yourself, you may ask yourself, why did they use such imagery to describe these events and people? And the reason is most likely because this is something that has to be understood thousands of years from the day it was written. Because trust me, folks, if the world kept going for another few thousand years, those people in the future would probably have a hard time interpreting the language used today. Do you see? So, in order for those in the future to understand us, we would have to use universal imagery and writing to relay that information intact. And this is the vision which I saw while I was asleep. And I woke up, blessed the Lord of righteousness, and ascribed glory to him. But after this I wept bitterly, and my tears did not stop until I could not endure it. When I looked, they ran down because of what I saw, for everything will come to pass and be fulfilled, and all the deeds of men in their order were shown to me. That night I remembered my first dream, and because of it I wept, and was disturbed, because I had seen that vision. More from the book of Enoch and other texts are coming. Stay tuned. More strange and bizarre happenings as well as findings to discuss in due time. I do have many other topics to get through that I am quite excited about. I encourage you, if you are interested, to go through this chapter of the book of Enoch, the prophecy of animals. The writing is extraordinary. Something to look into until the next presentation, which is right around the corner. But until then, of course, ladies and gentlemen, stay awake, stay aware, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all soon.
This is an aligner. Well, to be clear, it's a clear aligner from Smile Direct Club. Our aligners take teeth.
The Apocalypse of Enoch, or should I say the Ethiopic Book of Enoch. It is the oldest of the 3 pseudepigrapha of Enoch, where in an introduction he starts off with a narrative describing the final judgment of all and the fate of the world. The narrative continues with the fallen angels and their relationships with women, how they defiled mankind, followed by Enoch's intercession between the fallen and God, their fate with visions of Sheol, earth, and heaven. The second part is a book of parables. The third part is on astrology. The fourth part are dreams or visions about the future history of Israel from Adam and the deluge. And the fifth gets into the apocalypse of weeks. When it comes to ancient technologies and the tech we use today, it is interesting to look into where it all began. It should give you a better understanding of the world we live in and the world we are from. So I invite you to join me and take a closer look at the very ancient and sacred technologies and the Book of Enoch. And they took wives unto themselves, and everyone respectively chose one woman for himself, and they began to go unto them. This is actually pretty scary, because the women under this circumstance don't have a choice, and these angelic beings took the most beautiful women they could find. Keep in mind, prior to doing this, they had to make a pact or bond with each other, because they knew what they were doing and they knew the consequences of their actions. Think about this. These are angels. Where do they think God was while they were all planning this? Understand, all this was allowed. And they taught them magical, medicine, incantations, the cutting of roots, and taught them about plants. One of the things I want to point out is that among these angelic beings, there is a shapeshifter, Godriel, and this may be the angel that came to earth to tempt Eve. He may have sexually seduced her, which would give him first-hand knowledge of how to mate with women, right? That knowledge would then be taught to other angels so that they could change form and do the same. And this is how the knowledge of these ancient technologies begin to spread, because they spread that information among themselves first, then to man, showing their wives how to use symbols and herbs for incantations, how to take plants and use them for medicines, potions. Asbiel was another one giving counsel to other angels on how to be evil, basically luring and convincing them to hook up with women. And the women became pregnant and gave birth to great giants, whose height were 300 cubits. These giants consumed the produce of all the people until the people detested feeding them. The giants turned against the people in order to eat them, and they began to sin against birds, wild beasts, reptiles, and fish. And their flesh was devoured, the one by the other, and they drank blood. And then the earth brought an accusation against the oppressors. And Azazel taught the people the art of making swords and knives and shields and breastplates. And he showed to their chosen ones bracelets, decorations, shadowing of the eye with antimony, ornamentation, the beautifying of the eyelids, all kinds of precious stones, and all coloring tinctures and alchemy. And there were many wicked ones, and they committed adultery and erred, and all their conduct became corrupt. Amasraf taught incantation and the cutting of roots, and Amaros the resolving of incantations, and Baraquel astrology, and Kokarel the knowledge of the signs, and Tamel taught the seeing of the stars, and Azdarel taught the course of the moon, as well as the deception of man. And the people cried, and their voice reached into heaven. Now, there is of course a lot more to what is being stated here. For example, when these angels taught man metalworks, the forging of swords, knives, we're not talking about your everyday blade. And this is where the alchemy comes in. How many of you know about Damascus steel? It was a metal produced in ancient Damascus, Syria. This type of steel usually has a distinctive flowing pattern, strong, shatterproof, and sharp. But see, the problem is no one today has been able to duplicate the recreation of the original Damascus steel. And the reason for this, which they won't admit, is nanotechnology.
Brush your teeth in less than 10 seconds with this revolutionary toothbrush. It was created by a well-known dentist, and it took him over 3 years to make.
The Book of Enoch.
Now, before I get into anything else, I just want to stay at the beginning of his Woodward thing. It's recently changed. I used to watch it a while ago and it would just say Woodward TV. But now, he's got this circle without a center in it. So those of us know astrology know a circle is a symbol for Saturn. And not only that, but he's got a line going through it that looks like the planet with the rings around it. It almost looks like this guy who's preaching Christian and saying that God's up there and we have to listen to God and this and that and that other shit, and telling you to protect your spiritual body, which I agree with, and be spiritual and be aware and all this other shit. He's got Saturn right at the beginning of his video. You know what I mean? It's like, did he just see that and say, hey, that looks cool? Is it this unconscious thing that he knows that he's got to, you know, for his success? He's got a lot of success on this thing. He's got a lot of people. He's got like 400 and some thousand subscribers. I mean, that's a big fucking number. He's almost 500,000 subscribers. So does he know that Saturn is something you need to appease to become popular? I don't know. Is it because he's giving out Saturn-like information, meaning like doom and gloom, restrictive, death information? I don't know. Who knows? I'm just saying I find it very funny, someone who doesn't really believe in astrology. And that's one thing he talks about. He even says it too. I made a video saying one of the Book of Enoch is all astrological. And he even says it. He goes through the 5 books of Enoch, although I thought there was 3. So he says 5 book of Enoch, and I think he says number 1, his other 2 or 3 he says is astrology, astrological. And after, not very long after he says that, he talks about one of the angels who came down teaching people about astrology. Yet, he talks about, he doesn't say Archangel Ariel, even though that's what it says in the Book of Enoch, but teaching him astrology. It's ridiculous. But anyways, like I said before, though, you can't exactly take that out of the Bible because astrology is of the devil, and then give you a book teaching you about astrology. And I also agree that this book was gone and lost and now it's found. And I'm not saying that this wasn't found now for a reason. I think it's important that we find these books after the fact, after we know that they were taken out, Council of Nicaea deciding what books are putting in the fucking thing, and all that other shit. Maybe I'll play that video by Bert. It's already going to be like fucking probably close to 2 hours, this video, just be warned. But point I'm trying to say is I agree with most things that he's saying, okay, with this book. I just don't agree with being able to use it to foresee the future. And I'm going to let Birch tell you very quickly and decisively why that is when it comes to the Mayans and when it comes to the Christians, why they're not. But yeah, this guy, like, honestly, if you watch every one of his videos, his whole channel front to back, very entertaining, very well fucking done, which makes it seem like he's got funding from somebody, and you know, or he's just really good at what he does. Who knows? Maybe he puts a lot of money into it, and that's why he's doing well. Maybe he's one of these people that are needed. You know, we need people to get people into their fear-based media stage and get past it. But there still has to be somebody always putting that information out there for people to find it. And someone should make money from doing that. So I'm not saying what he's doing is not a worthy cause, because people need to go through this fear-based media stage to become evolved. So he's not a bad dude. I'm not condemning this guy or nothing. I'm just saying, don't get lost in the shit. But if you watch it from front to back, it'll scare the shit out of you. I watch it now, and I know most of this shit is not as it seems, and it can still scare me. Be like, man, maybe this motherfucker's weird. No, I banished this shit, and I accept that we are free from all this bullshit. But anyways, so without further ado, the man, the legend, Uncle Birch, baby, here we go.
The end of the world. Is it coming? I'm not concerned. I've been around a long time and I've been through too many doomsdays. And when I was a kid, we expected the world to end in 1984. I think because all the punk bands rhymed nuclear war with 84. And it was definitely a concern, and the world was, poised to blow itself up. And I've been through, Y2K and too many, on and on and on, the doomsday scenarios. Now, I should mention that I come from one of the old doomsday cults in witchcraft. My parent tradition, the Druidic Craft of the Wise, had very old legends told of the earth being destroyed several times, and was waiting for the next time it was being destroyed. But as such, there was a lot of training in that system to survive the apocalypse, to flourish in the apocalypse. So I've been getting ready for the apocalypse my whole life, but I don't think it's coming this year. I don't. I'm not having any dreams. I'm not awakened in the middle of the night. I don't see it coming. And I'll tell you, I don't think anybody should see it coming. The Mayan calendar ends. That's it. The calendar ends. We don't know what that means. Maybe it's just time to start a new calendar. Maybe time doesn't run like time once ran. Who knows? There was much doomsday philosophies in the Mayan culture, but as most doomsday philosophies of old people, it was a prophecy for a much earlier time. God, I hope the music's not too loud in here, but it is very ominous, right? It was a prophecy for an earlier time. The Mayan civilization did end. It disappeared off the face of the map. That was their doomsday that they were prophesizing. Likewise, the Christians been waiting for thousands of years for Armageddon, and Armageddon happened shortly after the book was written. The beast was Caesar. Armageddon was a battle between all the armies of the world. All the armies of the world were to meet at the plains of Megiddo, which was a significant piece of land back during the times of the Old Testament. If you controlled the plains of Megiddo, you controlled the throughways, the highways to several nations. You could control the entirety of that piece of the Middle East.
The charges he would expect, criticism he would expect if Hillary was elected.
By controlling that piece of land. Back during the times of the Old Testament, if you controlled the plains of Megiddo, you controlled the throughways, the highways to several nations. You could control the entirety of that piece of the Middle East by controlling that piece of land back in the day. Now it's an insignificant piece of land. The armies of the world assembled several times on the plains of Megiddo, and they assembled shortly after the Old Testament was written on the plains of Megiddo, had their huge battle. Caesar was the beast of the Jews at the time. They were foretelling their doom, and it was a very short-range prophecy. It wasn't reaching thousands of years into the future. Likewise, the Mayans. The Mayan culture ended a long time ago, disappeared from the face of the map. So since they already had their doomsday, why would they be concerned with ours? They're already gone. On and on and on the doomsday scenarios go, and the problem is, we read these old books and they're written in an old language, different than the language we use now. As I've stated before, everything's symbolic in the Bible, but many cultures have foretold this, and I'm sure it's going to come at some point. The earth does that every so often, but people keep asking me, and no, I don't think it's going to happen this solstice. Maybe something will happen. And the thing that some people need to keep in mind, it's not always the end of the world. It's the end of the world in its present state. It's a change in consciousness, hopefully, and that'd be great if that came along. But I do not feel the big cataclysm is going to come this solstice. I would probably be, plagued with nightmares and, stockpiling food and finding a place in the mountains to go hide. And I don't feel motivated to do that. So, I could be wrong. We'll find out on the solstice. But people keep asking me. I'm not concerned. I did get a message from a viewer. It was very sweet. He was very concerned about me getting out of California because it's all going to go down. And I appreciate your concern. But I'm here for a reason, and I need to be here for that reason right now. And I'm clear on that. And that was my own personal prophecy, and I know why I'm here and what I'm doing here. And thank you for your concern. Now, if it's the old story of California falling in the sea, which, theoretically could happen, this viewer was telling me to go to Oregon. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. I was reading your messages while on the toilet this morning. I forgot who said it, but if California was to fall into the sea, I'm sorry, Oregon's not the place to be. The resulting tsunamis would devastate everything on the West Coast. And the new West Coast, California fell into the sea, the tsunamis probably sweep into Arizona. So there's no place, if that happened, no place on the West Coast going to survive. So thank you. I sure wouldn't want to go like inland or head south, go down to the Bible Belt to hide. I'd head for the Sierras or something like that. But I don't have a whole lot more to say on that. But I did, I haven't said anything, and people keep asking me, "What do you think about that?" I don't think this is the time. Something may happen on the solstice, but I don't think it's going to be the end of the world as we know it. And so far, that end of the world hasn't happened. It's more likely that the Old Testament prophecies were foretelling something in the near future for them, and the Mayans likewise. The Mayan culture had a doomsday, and it had a doomsday not too long after their prophecies were written. But I see nothing in their prophecies pointing specifically at this time, or that their prophecies apply to this time. The only thing that I do find factual is that their calendar ends, and that can mean a lot of things. Just in these past couple years, we've had some interesting things happen. Like there was an earthquake in Chile. The earthquake in Chile threw our time off by what was it, microseconds? Just fraction of microseconds. But even that kind of thing. If we had some more earthquakes that threw off our time, our calendars wouldn't work anymore. And it could be that the Mayans just knew that it was going to be time to get a new calendar. And it could be that the Mayans didn't know anything. Who knows? Just because people are old does not make them, does not give them an insight into the future. Sometimes we do that. Just because a culture's ancient, anything that they said, we hold dear. And I have no disrespect to my ancestors, but not all of our ancestors were right. People have been expecting the end of the world forever. There's even a book. It's probably a couple books now, but a book on doomsday. All the doomsdays that have ever happened, all the crazy stuff that people did, all the riots in the streets that have happened throughout time, and the next day, the world's still here. So Uncle Birch says I wouldn't worry about that right now, and if I feel you need to worry about that, I'll be sure to tell you. I'm not sure how much time I have on my phone, so I should probably end the video at 9 minutes here before it cuts me off. You can get on my Facebook page, Facebook/BirchTreeCraft. Don't go to Birch Tree Craft, Vermont. I'm shocked that somebody had such a similar name, but it turned out that way. Birch Tree Craft. Several people keep asking me to give the address where they can send donations, because I don't tell that enough. It's probably why I'm not rich yet. I forget to say things like that, but you can PayPal us donations at sacredgrove913@hotmail.com. sacredgrove913@hotmail.com. I think that's all my announcements. Facebook page, sacredgrove913. And I guess that's it. Merry meet. Merry part. Top of the morning to you. Merry meet again.
Alright, God bless his fucking soul, Mr. Uncle Birch there. I love that man. I don't even know him, never met him. He left one comment on my Facebook once, and I felt like a kid tickled pink fucking happy with shit. I don't even know how that saying goes, but I butchered that shit. So, interesting to note that this was actually in 2011 when he made that video. Or, sorry, it was in 2012. Before December, before the solstice. But I love it. He says it's so simple. Like, the Catholics and the Mayans were predicting their Armageddon for the near future. Why is it that we are taking this old book and interpreting it for fucking today? Now, there are things happening in the Bible, and there are groups out here that are trying to make the prophecies in the Bible happen by actually constructing the temple so many times. And I'm not even going to get into all the ways that, whatever you want to call it, the zealots, whoever you want to call it, these hardcore fucking Orthodox Jews, maybe, as people like to think. I don't think that's accurate either. When it comes to the whole Enoch thing I played, I like playing, I'd rather play something about the Book of Enoch so people are educated on what the Book of Enoch is, because I think it's very, very good read, very enlightening to know, but not to be taken literally. Not one fucking bit. Not at all. Don't take that shit literally. And I don't understand why we keep taking over and over and over again old stories and trying to make them be our doomsdays, our prophecies. We're not doing the things that were happening in the Bible. If anything, like I said, the Book of Enoch is talking about all these bad things, like leading up to the flood. All these things that these people did, and then boom, they had a flood. Well, we all do witchcraft right now. I've been doing witchcraft for a while. Witchcraft has been around for a while. Hell, it's called Wicca, but it's a fucking religion in the United States. It's a known religion, and I still haven't found out if it's a religion here in Canada, which I should really figure that out. But point is, we haven't been sent to flood at all. We're not going to be sent to flood. These things were meant to, honestly, I personally believe that the book was meant to scare us and was meant to predict their own prophecies for their time. Like he said, a lot of people just think because these old civilizations were old that they have some sort of wisdom over us, and they probably did. They're probably bang on for their time. But now we're taking and interpreting it as it's our future. And it's like, do you see anything in there about fucking Facebook? Do you see anything in there about the fucking computers? No, but you can twist everything and have symbolic meanings to today. Absolutely. I do that all the fucking time. I take old wisdom all the time and I twist it and try to explain it here on how to use your brain, your mind as, hey, this is what the Bible is trying to say. Hey, this is what this is trying to say. I do that all the time. It's very simple to do. But those prophecies have been prophesized for my lifetime alone, okay? I wasn't born in 1984, but I know there was one then. I was born in 86. Something big happened in 86, 87. But then, in the early 90s, there was something else. I can't fucking remember. I'm sorry about that. But in 97, we had an ice storm. Everybody thought it was the end of the world. Then Y2K happened. Thought it was the end of the world. Then there was 9/11. Everybody thought we were going to kill everybody. But before that, there was these wars in Iraq and shit like that. There was a few other things prior to that. And then there was the 2012 shit. And now we have this shit happening. It's like there's always these fucking doomsday prophecies that never fucking go anywhere. So before people start saying this fucking, like, I know Ralph, and God bless Ralph, I got nothing against him, but saying that Scorpio, October, shit's gonna hit the fan, and from 2021 to 2025 to 2030, things are gonna get bad. He actually said that big prediction there, but I'm not dissing him either, by the way. He's probably not wrong, but point is, it's like, the more we say this shit, the more we think this shit, the more likely it's going to happen. And the more people that believe in the Bible and believe in those prophecies being today's prophecies, the more likely it's to happen. And like I said in a previous video, thank God Christians don't know how to pray right. And thank God, or gods, or goddess, or all there is, that it's only in their conscious mind. I mean, it's definitely deep embedded in their subconscious mind. But I don't think the prophecies are. Because if they were, the amount of Christians on this planet probably would happen by now. But we don't have to worry about the Nephilim and all that shit. There might have been Nephilim, and we might be finding Nephilim bones, but they're not alive anymore. They're not here if there was. I'm not saying the Book of Enoch is wrong. There very well could have been Nephilim. There very well could have been watchers and bad angels that came down and weren't supposed to teach us this shit. But they spilled the beans. And I think just like the story of Adam and Eve, the snake telling Eve to do something, and because of that we've got consciousness. Because before that we were just subconscious. We just were. There's no good, there's no evil. Because of the snake, we got good and evil. I think it's the same situation. Humans were getting by. Shit had to happen. They had to get evolution to go forward. There's different interpretations of the Book of Enoch in spiritual ways. When we hear about Palladians or Arcturians or any different aliens coming down and messing with the DNA code from bringing us from, and science has its own way of talking about it, how there was all these different types of humans, none of them lasted, and all of a sudden the Homo sapien flourished. Well, it can be interpreted as the same fucking story as what we hear. These angels came down and fucked with humans, and they got it wrong so many times. I think it is the Mayans that have this story. It might even be, I don't know if it's the Mayans, the Popol Vuh talk about something like that. And the Mesopotamians have a similar story where they're fucking around with the DNA of people and all the different gods for those people get a chance. I think it might have actually been Mesopotamians, but I'm not sure. There's too many these stories. There's a lot of these stories, and it's to explain our genetics. And we can have these fear-based ones where you're the devil if you practice this stuff, even though we haven't had a flood since Noah's day. No one knows when the fuck that was, but we know what happened. And hell, dinosaur bones could have been the children of Nephilim, or it could have been the children of the archangels and the women, or it could have been, God only knows what. We don't know, but I'm telling you right now, there's no stashed out Nephilim, and that's where they're raiding the food sources to give it to the Nephilim, keep them happy so they don't come out here and eat us. It's not it. Now, this guy talks a lot about meteor showers and a lot of activity in space, and I, for a fact, know that's happening, and I can't tell you how. I can't even give you facts about it. I do know that it's always been recorded in our past that every time there has been, up until like when our technology got the greatest, is whenever we have the less knowledge of what's going on in space. That doesn't make any fucking sense. But anyways, when things happen crazy down here, things are happening upstairs, up in the space, up in space, up in the heavens. And I said this before, fucking check your local town and see how many little tremors and little insignificant earthquakes you've had. You'll notice that, holy fuck, we're having a lot more. You think you'd know about this, but you don't. And that's just the way this little orb is kind of pissing me off. It's just the way the light's reflecting. But point is, you can get stuff from fear-based media, but you got to take it at your own risk, but with your own knowledge, not just take on what they're trying to sell you, like, oh, comets are gonna hit the earth, we're all gonna die. No, but if there's activity going on in space, then something is happening here, and we need to be aware of that. Birch wasn't wrong. He spoke this whole thing into existence. Maybe, I don't know, he's a powerful witch, so I wouldn't doubt it. But there was a conscious shift after that 2012 fucking solstice. There was a conscious shift. There was a huge conscious shift, and it's still evolving. And I don't think it's evolved enough. And now this is one of the reasons, one of many reasons why things that are happening today are happening. It's to advance our species. It's to advance us. It's to get us all aligned. Because as much as I like the idea of people who are evolved, like me, for example, getting to go to a different plane, getting to go to New Earth, and people that aren't getting left behind, that's not how this shit works. Because what you get to go, I mean, and I get what people are saying. It's like, you're in your own dimension right now, you're creating your own reality, and that's great, and that's true. But we can't evolve the species until we're all on the same plane. To all the people, all the elites trying to fuck us over using magic against us, all people using magic like me, all people who don't even think magic's real. So all of us are on the same plane. We're not evolving. We're not evolving the species, and we're not getting off this fucking rock. We're going to keep reincarnating until we either do it, or Mother Earth says, let's try it again. And that's not to spread fear. That's what I think. That's my belief. That's what I feel inside. That's what I feel deeply. But we got to stop taking prophecies from old fucking books and old fucking civilizations and taking them on as our own. This COVID-19, this is our own fucking test. It's our own test. And I can't tell you if it's a test for us to be able to say, hey, do we stand up as a people and call bullshit? Or is it a legitimate threat that we have to get through? I can't tell you that. But it's something we need to decide as a people. As one fucking globe. Together. And we can agree to disagree on the facts and get disclosure, get whatever we need, but we need to come together as a people, as one fucking nation under this. And I'm not trying to promote any, because I say I'm Illuminati, and I'm not trying to promote fucking one world government. Trust me. I don't think a one world government is good at all. I think a one world people is great, but not under some fucking government and politician fucking leadership bullshit. I think we can all govern ourselves. And if we have people doing bad, well, we can deal with those people ourselves somehow and figure a fucking way out. I mean, the way we got it now, if it wasn't for a lot of fucking maybe greed and, you know, people misusing power, we could actually have a pretty good system the way things worked if we treated each other equally. Doesn't matter how smart or how stupid you are. And if people actually did a job that was worth getting more of a pay, we all understood stuff like that. People who didn't do such an empowering job were still treated equally. But, you know, anyways, I don't want to get into all that because I know a lot of people think everybody should get the same amount of money. But in the same sense, it's like, how can you do that? And maybe we shouldn't even have money. And I don't want to get into all those debates. But what I do know is that anybody pushing Book of Enoch or any other COVID-19 being the end of the world or any of this shit, it's false. It's false. Ethiopia is where the Mayans were, okay? Or it's very close. Ethiopia still believes that the Book of Enoch is real. That's what they're trying to sell us. I hate to tell you, but Hollywood paints the picture for us of how the rest of the world is. Until you go to the rest of the world, it's way different. It's not as it seems in the fucking movies or even on the fucking news. And that's part of the movie magic that they are performing. You know, people can say the Druids or Hollywood is passing spells and all that shit. Maybe they are. But the biggest spell, the biggest fucking thing they're doing is telling you how the world is when it isn't like that. And telling you how bad people are when they're not. And telling you how some people are good when they're not. But anyways, I don't think I can add much more to what Birch said. I had a lot of different points I wanted to bring up. I didn't bring up any of them. But I think it's better short and sweet like this. I've already fucking probably I think I'm at 100 minutes now. So that's a pretty long episode for YouTube. And I'd be surprised if they even allow it. But I know they will. But I just wanted to put this out here. And kibosh, all these theories are going to be coming out. I mean, October's around the corner, Halloween time, come November, we're going to start getting the prophecies, probably even before that, all these new prophecies saying we're never going to make it to 2021 and the world's going to end, and I just want to squash it before it even starts. It's not us, it's not ours, and if you want to add to that, then go for it. But I'm telling you right now, you start adding to it and you pretend to be spiritual, I'm calling you out as a fucking fake and a fraud. Simple as that. No more fucking around. If you're going to try to sway people's minds into this fucking prophecy and no time bullshit, I'm calling you out as a fucking fraud. I'm done. No more fucking playing around. If you're trying to sway people's fucking minds, here's a power against you, I'm calling you out. I'm not fucking around anymore. And you want to call me out, you want to cancel me, you want to do whatever, that's fine. I don't think it'll happen, but it's fine. I don't give a shit anymore. I'll still do my fucking thing and I'll be proud of how I do it. And if I don't want to speak things into existence, so I'm going to stop. Point is, I'm tired of all these fucking people abusing other people. People are just trying to find their way through their spirituality, and they get stuck by all these fucks that are trying to trick them. It's sick. It's disgusting. We got to stop. And I know to a certain extent, some of it has to happen because you got to find out, and you got to stop being so gullible, and you got to figure this shit out for yourself. But sometimes people lose years of their lives on this shit, and there's some urgency to what's going on right now, and I don't know what it is. I don't think it's end of world urgency, but there is an urgency here. There is something going on that I can't explain yet. And as soon as I know, you'll be the first to fucking know, but there is an urgency to what's going on. But anyways, that's it for today. Sorry for taking up most of your time. If you stuck through it to the end, thank you. I fucking appreciate it. And if I ever see you in person and you tell me you did, I'll buy you a beer or a shot or whatever the fuck you want. But anyways, full moon Thursday for me. This Thursday coming up, I got my wife to come out to me in some desert location to adorn her full beauty, and we're going to play the game of Benevento when we're done, baby, to celebrate her in her all her glory. I'm going to go straight up gospel the fucking witches on my wife. She's not going to know it, but still, nonetheless, I'm going to do my ceremony by the water somewhere, a couple, 30 minutes away from my hometown, but do something for the full moon, even if it's you just going out close to the time where it's supposed to be the full moon, telling her, you know, how much you respect her, and thank her. Use the moon. Write on a candle for the moon that you're so grateful that she's allowed you to manifest and put suggestions into the subconscious mind. And thank her for not allowing harmful, misleading, harmful information getting into your subconscious mind. Simple candle, but it might save you in the long run. You might not get these bad things in your mind that fuck up your whatever. It's one of the most recent candles I did to the moon, actually, was today. There was something very similar to what I just told you. Thanking her for the great connection I have between my conscious and my subconscious. Thanking her for protecting me from information. And if that means I never watch something that's going to harm me, great. If that means if I do watch something that protects me and doesn't allow it in, great. I don't care. It doesn't matter how it manifests, as long as it manifests, because I don't want that shit in my mind. But yeah, you're allowed to ask for something on the full moon. Keep in mind, though, if you're just going to be greedy and ask for a bunch of money, you didn't do anything to deserve it. Well, I don't know what to tell you. It may play out, but then you might lose it just as fast as you get it. Point is, this Thursday, celebrate that moon. That silver fucking ball up there. The sun is important, but so is she. That's Diana. Pay your respects. Anyways, have a good day.